Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope everybody is doing good. And Alhamdulillah, we completed Surah Al-Anbiya last time. And today we begin Surah Al-Hajj, which is the 22nd Surah of the Quran. And this Surah is also in juz number 17, yani para number 17 of the Quran. Another gem, another amazingly beautiful Surah. See that how our Rabb is addressing us over here. إن الحمد لله يا ربي لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا ما رضيت ولك الحمد بعد رضا ولك الحمد على كل حال اللهم لك الحمد حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي آمين يا رب العالمين يا غفور رحيم يا أرحم الراحمين يا ذا الجلال والإكرام فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So this surah, surah number 22, Surah Al-Hajj, which actually literally means the pilgrimage of Hajj, it actually picks up where the previous surah, yani Surah Anbiya, was left off, yani the Day of Judgment. Now this surah is unique in the Quran because it has elements of both Makki and Madani surahs, right? So there is a difference of opinion among scholars whether it is a Makki surah or whether it is a Madani surah. So some categorize it as Madani and some categorize it as Makki, right? A good chunk of it is clearly Makki. The ayat that talk about the Day of Judgment, the ayat that talk about Qiyamah, the ayat that talk about the category of people who are going to go in Jannah or those who are going to go in Jahannam, all of that is very Makki in flavor. Yeah, and yet again, it has two ayat of sajda in it, and usually ayat of sajda come in Madani surahs, right? So the surah basically combines both characteristics of the Makki and Madani surah. And the reason it is called Surah Hajj is pretty obvious, I guess, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned how the pilgrimage of Hajj was initiated by who? By Ibrahim alayhi salam, in the days of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the forms of worship to be performed during the sacred journey. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also talks about the status of the sacred mosque of Makkah, yani Al-Masjid Al-Haram. So inshallah, let's begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhan nas, ittaqu rabbukum inna zalzalata as-sa'a shay'un azim. O mankind, fear your Lord. Ya ayyuhan nas. This is a very interesting beginning. O mankind, fear your Lord and be dutiful to him, have taqwa of him. Verily, the earthquake of the hour, yani the zalzala of Qiyamah, is a terrible thing, and it is a tremendous thing indeed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the surah on a very, very strong note, as you can see. Ya ayyuhan nas. So basically, the first thing is that the Quran is a message for all humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, everybody. What scholars tell us is that there is a difference between Ya ayyuhal insan and Ya ayyuhan nas. Because in some places, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal insan. So in English, to get a feel of the difference, Ya ayyuhal insan, O humanity. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people. Yani nas meaning O people, O each and every one of you human beings. So, O human beings, what scholars tell us is it direct, it's a more direct address to each and every one of us. Ya ayyuhal insan, addressing humanity as a collective. And over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing each and every one of us. Each and every one of you human beings, you should have taqwa of your Rabb. Now this zalzala, we use the word zalzala in Urdu also. You know? Zalzala can also mean earthquake, of course, quake, and we know from many places in the Quran that literally the earth will be shaking at the time of Qiyamah. Yeah. Zalzal can also be shock, the shock of the hour. Yes, of course, everything will be folded and collapsed, and a reverse Big Bang, so to speak, type of thing of an earthquake is going to happen. But there will also be a tremendous shock, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Inna zalzalata sa'a shay'un azim. Yani it is something tremendous. There's something tremendous about this day. Then Allah goes on to say what's going to happen on that day. The day you shall see it, every nursing mother will forget her nursling, and every pregnant one will drop her load, and you shall see mankind in a drunken state. Yet they will not be drunk, but severe will be the torment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as the mother feeds her baby from her own body, yani as long as the mother is nursing the baby with her milk, she's called murdiya. Murdiya. If you look at this word over here, murdiya, yani a nursing mom, a nursing mother. And it is talking about every mother, not just human beings, right? So every mother, whether it is human or animal, will forget feeding their babies. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over here didn't say babies or offsprings. He said whatever she used to feed, as if she can't even remember its name, as if she's completely lost it when that zalzala happens. That's how shocking the day of judgment is going to be like. And something which is most precious for a mom is what? For any mother, whether it's a human mother or an animal mother, the most precious thing, the most urgent thing to take care of for a nursing mother is the baby, that she's nursing. Particularly in the animal kingdom, you can see, and even with human moms, in the animal kingdom, what happens? A mother who is nursing her babies is very, very protective and is on edge all the time. If you go near a little bit, try to go near the little baby that she's feeding, she's going to turn violent on you, generally speaking. And at this time, the out of shock, she's just going to forget who is this, and she's probably going to just let it drop and do whatever. She can't be bothered anymore, right? That is how shocking the day is going to be. Every mother is going to drop her child during the time when she was feeding in the closest bond. And because of the continuous shaking of the earth, every pregnant creature on earth is going to have miscarriages. Because of the constant shaking, because of the constant shock. You're going to see people who are tipsy. Punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be this intense that people are going to look drunk, right? Sukara, look of drunkenness. They're going to be wandering around in a stupor as if they are intoxicated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is painting such a vivid picture of a time of panic, of a time of extreme anxiety, of a time of people completely losing their composure. So all of these signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, and if you shut your eyes and just focus on what Allah is saying, you see something that the shock of the sa'a, right, this time will rupture all rationality, all composure. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a long hadith has told us, this is from Imran bin Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, when these ayats, O mankind, have taqwa of your Lord, until his saying, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was on a journey. And he said, do you know what day that is? The Sahaba said, Allah and his messenger know best. Subhanallah, that was always the response of the Sahaba when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to ask them, do you know such and such? And they would say, Allah and His Messenger know best, you know. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that is the day on which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to Adam alayhi salam, send forth who are to be sent to the fire. He, yani Adam alayhi salam, will say, Ya Rabbi, O Lord, how many are to be sent to the fire? He will say, who is he? He then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, from every 1,999 will be in the fire and one will be in paradise. Allahu Akbar. Yani 1%. 1%. So the believers, they started to weep. They started to cry. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said, be close in your rank and be straightforward. For there was never any prophet, but there was a time of ignorance just before his advent. So the number will be taken from that time of ignorance. And if that is not enough, it will be made up from the hypocrites. A parable of yours in comparison to the other nations is that you are like a mark on the foreleg of an animal or a mole on the flank of a camel. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I hope that you will be a quarter of the people of paradise. So the Sahaba were elated. They said, Allahu Akbar. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said again, I hope that you will be a third of the people of paradise. They said, the companions, Allahu Akbar again. Then again Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I hope that you will be half of the people of paradise. And they said, Allahu Akbar. Then he, the narrator, said, I do not know if he said 2/3 or not. And this is reported in Bukhari. What is the meaning of this? The meaning is that 1% of believers will go directly to Jannah. We know that there are several routes to Jannah. One is direct, and the others are through the punishment of the grave, through the purification of the fire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from among that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wake us up from a stupor that we are in today to realize the kind of stupor that awaits those who have been completely heedless of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and heedless of the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from among those who go directly into Jannah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about different types of people over here. So Allah is saying, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ, and among mankind, مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَيَتَّبِعُ كُلَّ شَيْطَانٍ مُرِيدٍ. شَيْطَانٍ مَرِيدٍ. And among mankind is the one who disputes concerning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge and follows every rebellious shaitan, yani every rebellious or disobedient shaitan, devoid of each and every kind of good, so to speak. So there are certain categories of people who like to debate, who like to argue, who like to do jhak, right? These people end up following every type of rebellion and every type of shaitan. Marid, people who are messed up or want to do something that is messed up. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying really in this ayah is a reality that we see. And there is a reality that we don't see. So there are two realities really. One is physical, yani our physical heart, our eyes, our mind, our bodies. And there is a non-physical heart, which can turn hard or soft. The qalb that we have inside of us, we can't see it. There is no scientific apparatus or no way of actually verifying that there is a spiritual heart inside of us. So there is a seen dimension of the human being and there is an unseen dimension of the human being. Basically, there is an invisible person inside you and me, inside each of us. And this body of ours, which is apparent, which is seen, is like a garment that we are wearing, which is going to expire over time. And the real me, the real you, which is inside, is going to remain forever. That's not going to change, right? That's not going to expire. That is going to be hum fiha khalidun, forever, forever, forever. Yeah. Seen is the brain, the logical side. Unseen is the spiritual side. the spiritual heart, the qalb. Whenever we are exposed to any kind of filthy idea, say for example, the unseen spiritual side becomes weaker and weaker. And you feel like your intellectual self is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The deen of Islam, ideal situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be in harmony with both our outside and our inside, our seen and our unseen, our intellectual and our spiritual. That we should feed both our hearts as well as our minds. That is the situation of a believer. That is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. The question that demands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's explanations of matters and mercy must come to my logical point and not to my spiritual point. What does that say about the questioner? What does that say about the questioner? That the heart is dead. All that is left is the mind, which is just ready to argue without any substance, without any knowledge, and without any humility. Because humility rests not in our mind. Humility has got nothing to do with our intellect. Humility is all in the heart. It's all in our spiritual heart. And what is the central argument of the Quran? What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to you and me? That you are an abd, a slave, which in itself is a very humbling position, is a very humbling station to be a slave. But when we deny that, right, all humility is gone. And the arguments of the Quran become sidelined and mean nothing to us. So these are the kind of people who debate about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when they do, they follow the worst of shaitan and say the most obscene things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unfortunately, we actually see that left, right, and center. Unfortunately, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from being from among those who argue and argue and argue without any knowledge. Yeah. Then Allah says, continuing from ayah number 3, about whom it is destined that if someone takes him for a friend, he will misguide him. About whom, yani? About shaitan. In annahu kutiba alayhi, annahu, yani? This is talking about the shaitan. It is decreed that whoever follows him, he will mislead him and will drive him to the torment of the fire. So he will misguide anyone who befriends him, and he will misguide them to the torment of the blazing fire. Allahumma la taj'alna minhum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us from among those who are misguided by shaitan. And you know, we know from scholars and from the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that shaitan comes from one of the two possible origins. Where all hope is gone, hope is also where? In our heart, right? When all hope is gone, or from a place filled with anger and rage. So all that is left is the heart in a state of extreme anger, blazing anger. All of us go through many psychological phases in our lives. One of them is sadness. And this sadness over time, if it is not dealt with, if it is not resolved, turns into anger. Psychologists tell us that. And that anger is shaitan's work. You know, he looks for that time when that sadness turns into anger. And when does that sadness turn into anger? Because you're not referring that sadness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not trying to fix that with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us is healing. You're not turning to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for healing. Yeah, you're looking all over the place and you're getting angry that why is it that my child is sick? Why is it that my husband has passed away? Why is it that I have loss in my business? Whatever X, Y, or Z. Yeah, and then you are directing all your anger towards God rather than getting the remedy from God. And that is what shaitan waits for. All that is left of these people is sadness and anger. Because you see, it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who can get rid of our sadness. And we don't see that. And therefore we open a door for shaitan. So a few words, literally a few ayat of the Quran, and you learn such deep truths about your own self. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from among those who take lessons from these precious, precious ayats and who apply them in our daily lives for our own benefit. Actually, the verses of the Quran are for our own benefit in this dunya as well, if only we understand. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say in ayah number 5, which is a long ayah, again, addresses to everyone, Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind, if you are in doubt about resurrection, then verily we have created you, that is Adam alayhi salam was created from dust, then from a nutfa, which is mixed drops of male and female sexual discharge, any offspring of Adam alayhi salam, then from a clot, then from a little lump of flesh, some formed and some unformed. And that we may make it clear to you, and we cause whom we will to remain in the wombs for an appointed term, then we bring you out as infants, then give you growth, that you may reach your age of full strength. And among you there is the one who dies young, and among you there is he who is brought back to the miserable old age, so that he knows nothing after having known. And you see the earth barren, but when we send down water, any rain, it is stirred to life. It swells and puts forth every lovely kind of growth. Now, in ayah number 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about a full circle of life. Full circle of life, right? Let's try to understand it and understand this ayah bit by bit. So what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? If you look at the words, alaqa is to be stuck, a piece of flesh that is stuck in the mother's womb. Muhallaqa, early stage of sculpture, right? Nuqirru is from qarar, to find a place and stay calm there. Yani, when the fertilization happens inside the mother, it finds its place. Those bunch of cells, they find a place in the mother's womb, right? They get attached over there and then they stay there calmly. And yuraddu gives something back that is not yours. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, some people are formed. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will that there are some fetuses that come to term and there are some who are distorted. Yani, either there is a miscarriage or they are born with some disabilities. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my ayah. Yeah, over here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, once you're going through the stages of development inside the mother's womb, the mudugha mukhallaqa wa ghayri mukhallaqa. Yani, some are shaped or some are unshaped. So some are born with some disabilities, whether physical, whether mental, mental or physical disabilities. They're not formed like the ones that are formed completely. What do we see over here? What do we see over here, right? And then Allah goes on to say that there are different people who live to different time periods, and some go back to a very old age, which is when they become like children themselves, right? And this word over here, bahij, that Allah is giving a parable of of vegetation. Bahij means something that is very beautiful. It is a word for beauty that is used, right? Achha. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, we have created you from dust, then from a drop of sperm. First man, Adam alayhi salam, was created directly from clay. And after him, the process of procreation started by means of a sperm drop. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about this in other places of the Quran as well, like for example in Surah As-Sajda, ayat 7 and 8. It may also mean that man is created from a sperm drop, but his body is made of those elements which are available in the earth, various different elements. Now then Allah talks about different stages of development of the child in the womb of its mother. Now this description is based on observation and not on scientific research. And there was no need for it for the purpose for which the reference has been made here. And there is no way that anybody could have known this precise development process when the Quran was revealed. There's no way. It's just little while back that we find out about the development of a fetus in such detail. And there have been doctors who have studied this and have seen these ayat of the Quran, and they have come to Iman just based on that, that how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about such precise stuff that goes on inside the mother's womb, precise words, precise process, because he is the creator. It just points to the creator, doesn't it? And this old age, when you come to that old age, is again reverted to the same condition like childhood. Loses his senses and knows little or nothing like a child. Yeah. One thing which is interesting, let's just do a few ayat again, and then we will talk about ayat number 5 to 7 in detail again. In ayah 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْحَقِّ وَأَنَّهُ يُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَأَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. That is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the truth. He is Al-Haqq. And it is He who gives life to the dead. And it is He who is able to do all things. So talking about the whole process of life, the circle of life. Why is that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the complete truth. And He is the one who's able to do everything. You know, ala kulli shay'in qadir. What scholars tell us is that this Arabic text, yeah, may mean three things. What? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the truth, and you are wrong in presuming that there is no possibility of life after death. Number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence is not merely a supposition. Perhaps, maybe, you know, like the agnostic says, atheist just absolutely and completely denies God. And the agnostic is like, I'm not sure. Perhaps, maybe, no. It's not a supposition, it is a reality, right? And number three, all His designs and works are based on truth and are therefore serious, meaningful, and full of wisdom. He's not only the first cause, but He has supreme authority and is conducting every affair in the universe according to His will, His knowledge, and His wisdom. That is how He is Al-Haqq, the absolute and only truth. Yeah. And then in ayah number 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ آتِيَةٌ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ. And surely the hour is coming. There is no doubt about it. لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا. And certainly, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using such a lot of stress over here, right? أَنَّ السَّاعَةَ, absolutely, surely the hour is coming. La rayba fiha, there is absolutely no doubt about it. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ, and certainly Allah will resurrect those who are in the graves. The end of time is imminent. Right? Plants coming out of the ground is a reminder that the hour is coming. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to raise us back from the ground, from the dead. If only we notice all of these ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the beginning of the discussion, it was the mother who was pregnant with you. You know? That was your resting place, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulled you out of there from the womb of your mother. Later, it will be the earth that is going to be pregnant with you, and you will be delivered again. So the Lord who delivered you the first time, I mean, just put one and one together, right? How difficult it is going to be for Him to pull you back up again. He is the one who created you inside your mother's womb and pulled you out from there, and you're going to be delivered again. That's what's going to happen, right? Now, let's look at ayat 5 to 7. The effects of rain on the earth and the growth of vegetation and stages of life of man are pointers to 5 realities according to scholars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one, He brings the dead to life. He has power over everything. You know, sometimes people believe, people like you and me, that yes, Allah is the truth. Yes, Allah brings the dead to life. But we get stumped. He has power over everything. We somehow feel that his power is limited. We somehow feel that I am powerful. He has power over everything. The day of resurrection and the end of the world is an absolute fact, inevitable, right? And most surely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring back to life all the people who have died. Now let's consider how these signs point to these five realities. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is the truth. Let's look at ourselves, the case of mankind. All the stages of development are a clear proof that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed the process with wisdom. He takes the birth of you and me from a sperm drop, which itself is produced in a wonderful manner. The food that a person takes turns into hair, flesh, bones, and a part of it is turned into semen, which is potentially capable of producing millions of human beings. It is the wise and true Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who then decides which of these millions of seeds from the semen should be used to make a woman pregnant by mixing the seed with the egg cell. Allahu Akbar, there are millions of sperm, right? Millions of them. And there's just one. That selection is done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which fertilizes the egg. I mean, just imagine the enormity of that. It is not something which happens by chance. It is not something which just happens. And even when we talk about production and we talk about reproduction, what are the words that I use? It's, nature intended it this way. It happens. It's not a scientific phenomena. It is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then this insignificant bunch of cells turns into a living child in 9 months in the womb of the mother. If we consider the different stages of a child's birth, we come to the conclusion that all these have been designed by the true ever-living designer. Right? He is the one who has decided everything, whether it should be male or female, whether it should be of sight or blind, right? Whether it is going to be intelligent or average, what IQ it is going to have, whether it is going to be fair or dark. Everything about you and me has been designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So today, when we have this debate about this whole confusion about gender and sex and, trans issues, I mean, Allah has chosen your gender and Allah has chosen your sex, period. That's it. It is not a prerogative that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you and me. If my sex is female, my gender is female. If your sex is male, then your gender is male. And most certainly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created some creation, right? Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was also talking about in ayah number 5 that some are born. Let me get to the ayah so I use the correct word. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, the mudgha, some are mukhallaqa and some are ghayr mukhallaqa. Yani mukhallaqa, like Allah is sculpting the little baby, the little fetus. Some are completed in a way, so male or female, and ghayr mukhallaqa, some are incomplete somehow. So perhaps both the sexes are present in it, right? As we know that there are people who are like that, but there are very few. And that doesn't mean that everybody has been given this freedom, so to speak. I mean, and this is actually a delusion when we talk about that I am going to decide what my gender is, I'm going to decide what my pronouns are. We are deluding ourselves. We have nothing to do with it. It is the designer, it is the truth, the true God who has already done all of that for us. Right? I mean, I want to be the Queen of Spain, for example. If I say that to you, what are you going to say about me? You've completely lost it, woman. Get yourself together. That's not going to happen. I may want or wish to be anything. I identify as a unicorn. Well, good for you. Get your head examined, please. And don't take this as the reality and as the truth, and then call everybody else who's calling you out. It's like just like the little boy who was saying that the emperor is not wearing any clothes. Don't persecute the little boy, right? Look at yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has power over everything. When he has power over everything, doesn't he have power over my body? Doesn't he have power over my sex? Doesn't he have power over my gender? Of course he does. And that is already done and dusted when I was born. It's all done. It's all in the past. Now I live with it. Now my responsibility is to go forward as how I was born. So he is the one who decides how long a child is destined to live. Can anybody do anything about it? No matter how much medicine progresses, no matter how many anti-aging creams we have or anti-aging stuff. I mean, the world is obsessed with being young and not dying, right? So no matter what you do, you are going to die. Some die very, very young. Some die very, very old. And Allah is also talking about that. And then he takes you back to the time where you are wishing for death and you're not dying because you become like a second child, another child, completely helpless. Completely, you can't do anything. Sometimes you are still like in your 50s or 60s and you start forgetting stuff. Is there anything you can do about it? There's only this much that medical science can help us in terms of our bodies. After that, it's only God. It was God anyway in the first place. But we need to realize that some people survive horrible diseases like cancer. Was it medical science or was it shifa from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? Similarly, this acceptance of our bodies, this acceptance of our gender, this acceptance of our color, this acceptance of our fat nose, or whatever it is that you don't like about yourself, that is being a Muslim. That is acknowledging that Allah alone is the truth. That is acknowledging that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power over everything. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to do that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us recognize our own selves and help us help those who are so confused today. He brings the dead to life. Point number 2. Even a little thinking on the right lines will convince every sensible and honest person that this process of bringing the dead to life is continuously going on before my eyes. Every human being has been created from a dead sperm. Then he gets life from dead things, like food containing dead matter, like coal and iron and lime and salts and gases, which make us into a living human being. Then let us consider our surroundings. Seeds of different things have been scattered here and there by the wind and the birds, and the roots of different kinds of vegetation, which lay rotten and dead in the soil, they just spring up to life as soon as there occurs a sprinkling of rainwater. I'm sure we've seen a lot of National Geographic documentaries and have witnessed in front of our eyes also, if you are an observant person and if you have a patch of garden, right, that how this vegetation, which is completely dead, just wakes up when drops of water fall on it. This process of the dead coming to life is observed not only during rainy season year after year, but like I said, if you are a gardener or if you sort of water your plants and everything, you're going to see that happening in front of our eyes all the time. And yet we don't acknowledge it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ala kulli shay'in qadir, he has power over everything. I mentioned this before, that there are people who believe that no doubt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything and is governing the universe. But he cannot do anything in the future in addition to or apart from this. That's it. That's the end of his job. That's all he's done. Yeah. Nothing else is happening. Everything else is just man. Everything else is me. Everything else is science. Everything else is scientific progress. Right? Don't we observe the phenomena of his powers, which have been there and are appearing every moment of every day? They do not realize that if man, his creation, can perform wonderful feats of science, which could not even be dreamed of in the past ages, why should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be held as having only limited powers? Think about it. Why is it that we find it hard to understand that he has power over everything? That sorts out a lot of issues when we think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is powerful over everything. And then the last 2 points, 4 and 5, yani the day of resurrection and the end of the world is inevitable. And most surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring back to life all the people who have died. These are the 2 rational outcomes or consequences of these 3 preceding points. Yani that Allah is the truth, he brings the dead to life and he has power over everything. Allah is all powerful, therefore he can bring about resurrection at any moment that he wills. Yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the dead to life. He has power over everything. He alone is the truth. So he can also bring back to life all the dead people, just as he brought to life human beings, you and me, out of nothing in the first place. It's actually very, very logical if we sit down with a cool head, with a calm mind, with letting go of all the propaganda that is around us and just focus on the ayat of the Quran. That is something that we should do to sort our heads out, inshallah ta'ala, and sort our hearts out. And because he is all wise, he has not created human beings without any object and without any purpose. He will judge our worldly lives in accordance with the purpose for which we were created. He will call us into account for everything he entrusted to us. And this is actually a very simple thing to understand. This is not even difficult to understand. Why? Because we do that with each other, don't we? Say, for example, you have somebody working in your home in the kitchen. So you are the manager, the lady of the house, say, for example, yeah? In simple terms, aren't you going to ask him or her, whoever is working in the kitchen, so this month I got, I don't know, 5 kgs of oil and 10 kg atta and whatever sugar and this grocery and that. So what happened to it? Where is it? Right? So much milk. I just got a carton of milk and now I only see it hasn't even been a month or it hasn't been 2 weeks and now there is only 1 carton left. How is that possible? Please give me hisab of that. Right? If we are good managers of our homes and if we, even if we have a staff, we take them into account, don't we? We are taken into account if we are working somewhere, aren't we? This happens. This is how we deal with each other. So why do we think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us everything, and he has already told us that you are going to be held accountable, is not going to hold us accountable? That's a bit silly, isn't it? That we have a different standard for ourselves and a completely different standard for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of accountability. Right? He has entrusted us with whatever it is that we are entrusted with whether it's health, whether it's wealth, everything that he's given us is a trust, is an amana, and we are going to be asked about it. And it is our human nature that demands that there should be a differentiation between good and bad, and we expect reward for good and punishment for bad deeds. That is the reason that we have set up judicial courts in this dunya. We want justice. Human beings want justice. One of the things which is most lacking in countries that are hedonistic or that have got unjust rulers is what? Lack of a justice system. And that is a cause of real concern and a cause of real unrest among regular people. We say that all the time. There's no justice in the courts. We cannot imagine that a creator who is Al-Adil will not call us to account for the things, the powers, the faculties that he has entrusted to us. And common sense confirms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold the last judgment so that everyone should get their due reward and everyone their due punishment. Right? Common sense says that. You don't even have to dig deeper. So why is it that we don't think in such a rational manner when it comes to the workings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And ayat like these are nudging us towards thinking in a manner which will get us to the truth very, very easily without too much effort. You don't have to be a very cerebral and intelligent person. This is something for basic people like you and me. Anybody will understand this, right? Simple language, simple argument that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts forward. Then in ayah number 8, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is repeating that. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدَى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ. So in the ayah before, Allah was talking about that among people, there are those who debate about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any knowledge. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has added two more things, right? Without knowledge, no guidance, and no enlightening book. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats the situation, who still debate without knowledge, so it is kind of a scolding. Quran is called Kitab-e Munir because it gives off light. Light of what? Light of truth, light of guidance, light of rationality, light of understanding. People who argue against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have actually shut themselves off. You know, just like you put blinders on a horse, yeah, they just have a myopic view, and that's all they want to listen to. Like these days, when you have all of these debates about transgenderism, etc., right, or sexuality, right, or any LGBTQ issue, what happens? If you're trying to explain your viewpoint, you're not even listened to. You're just shut down. You're like censured from the word go. What is that? That is ignorance, isn't it? Put everybody's ideas, everybody's viewpoint on the table, and then discuss it rationally like rational human beings do. So the people who debate about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge, then also without guidance, and also without any enlightening book, right? They're talking fluff. They're talking whatever. And scholars say that this is a very good description of an atheist also. They argue about Allah not on the basis of ilm, but their own personal preference and fancy. The people who are arguing for LGBTQ are talking about their own personal preference and their own personal fancy. I want to be this. I think this. The sentence begins with I. The sentence does not begin with Allah says this. The Quran is saying that. Doesn't. And even if you take Allah and Quran out of the equation for a minute, although you really can't, right? But if you do, another person who maybe does not believe in God the way you and I do, but has a very rational explanation against LGBTQ issues, they're also shut down. They're also shut down because everything begins with I think so, right? Very, very problematic situation to be in if you argue without ilm, without hidayah, without kitab munir. Then Allah continues about these people. What happens? They're bending their neck, bending his neck in pride. Yani, when you're far astray from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Not only are you bending your neck, you have this attitude. You have that attitude. You think, I know it all. This is another type, yeah? I think you know it all. So not only are you turning astray from the path of Allah, and you're leading others too very far astray from the path of Allah. For him, there is disgrace in this worldly life, and on the day of resurrection, we shall make him taste the torment of the burning fire. Allahumma la taj'alna minhu. Allahumma ajirni minan nar. It's over here, right? Ain, ta, and fa. It is the neck. The neck and the entire shoulders. So, and thaniya means to turn away. So you're completely turning away. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is painting a picture here. Listens to the message and turns away. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually recording a crime in the Quran, is what scholars tell us. Walking away, scoffing. People of influence. Right? Today we see influencers left, right, and center on social media. A lot of them, again, one can't say everyone, a lot of them are very easily arrogant or get easily arrogant. And when they turn away, they don't only take the responsibility of themselves, but all those who followed them. all those who follow them. So if you have a voice, if I have a voice, if anyone has a voice that people listen to, whether it is 20, 30, 40, 80, 90, 500 people, or whether it is 50 million people or 5 million people, right? Allah has given you a platform and Allah has given you a voice. Now, how am I going to use that? Am I going to walk away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the teachings of truth? And then everybody that I'm influencing is going to be influenced by my choice. Or I can do something which is completely opposite, that I can walk towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah, many will walk with me and behind me. So all of us basically in our own little capacities are Pied Pipers, seriously. And Allah has given us that is a choice that you and I make. Which path are we going to follow? And this is interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that they are going to be disgraced in this dunya as well. And we will have him taste the punishment of the fire on the day of judgment. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that? Because we see that people who are with God knows how many million followers, etc., look very, very, very comfortable in their success, and they seem to have everything going for them. So Allah says in ayah number 10, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to them, ذَلِكَ بِمَا قَدَّمَتْ يَدَاكَ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَيْسَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. That is for what your hands have put forth, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not ever unjust to his servants. Yeah. And of the people, is he who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on an edge. If he is touched by good, he is reassured by it. And if he is struck by trial, he turns on his face to the other direction. He has lost this world and the hereafter. That is what is the manifest loss. So here again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying the same thing, that he's lost in both worlds, right? Walking on the edge. In what sense? What does it mean? If something good happens to them, they are content and satisfied. But if a calamity or a trial happens, they literally turn on their faces, meaning that they turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this is another category of people. Some scholars say that this is a person who is a Muslim on the verge, quote unquote, worshipping Allah from the edge of the cliff, right? Harf, right? Harfin, edge of the cliff. So this guy, this person, or this girl is walking Islam, but is not confident about it, right? The person, when struck by the trial, didn't just turn his shoulder, but made a 180-degree turn. And he has lost this world and the next, no peace, no ease, nothing. Just like the person before, right, who was arrogant, and Allah said, and who was an influencer, and Allah said that he has loss in this dunya and loss in the akhirah. Sometimes with a lot of success, there comes a lot of anxiety. Sometimes with a lot of wealth comes a lot of sleepless nights. Sometimes with a lot of influence come a lot of people who want bad for you, envy and jealousy, all of that. That is almost, celebrities sometimes have very, very disturbed lives. Yeah, very disturbed lives. Addictions you have all kinds of insecurities, even if somebody is not addicted, say, for example, right? Lots of insecurities. Okay, oh my God. Now, from 5 million, I've gone down to, I don't know, 4 million and something, right? Just 2 or 3 follow. What happened? Constantly on edge. And constantly worried about, oh my God, I'm getting older. Now my influence is going to wane, right? Stress, all over, anxiety. Because you're always in the numbers game, that person. This person over here who is kind of trying to walk Islam, right? So this type of person is like a time server, standing on the boundary line between Islam and Kufr, so that he may join the winning side, whether it be Islam or it be Kufr. So this is a picture of a very weak character, wavers between one end and the other, right? Slave of their own self. So basically, this is a person whose self-interest is his God. He's faithful to all his wishes, He wants his wishes to be fulfilled, so then I'm going to be faithful to God. He wants a life of ease and comfort, only then will he be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One little sacrifice, if it's demanded from him, one little thing or something, or there's some affliction or some concern, some hardship and loss in the way of God, and he's like doubting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's doubting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He becomes skeptical about everything to do with the faith. Right? And he's ready to bow down before any power from which he expects some benefit and some security. Now, what scholars tell us is that this is a great moral dilemma that has been stated here. The fact is that a person who's on the edge, how is he a loser in this world and how is he a loser in the next world? He's far worse than a disbeliever. Because you see, a disbeliever at least applies himself 100% exclusively to gain this dunya. Dunya, 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 dunya. Whether he becomes more or less successful, that doesn't matter, but he's after the object of his desire, single-mindedly. Khalas. No fear of Allah, no accountability of the hereafter, no restrictions of the Sharia, nothing. On the other hand, a true believer is following the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with perseverance, marching along, right? May be successful in this dunya, may not be successful in this dunya, but he is assured of success in the next world, right? His sight is on Jannatul Firdaus. But this bichara wavering Muslim, he becomes a loser both ways because he is handicapped by doubt and indecision about this dunya as well as about the akhirah, right? So there is some iman somewhere, some conscious somewhere, but he is not fully ready to submit himself to that. He cannot decide whether there is Allah and the hereafter, right? So he can't even because there is a doubt, so he can't even single-mindedly enjoy what the disbeliever enjoys in this dunya. There's always guilt, little bit of that. When he thinks of Allah and the hereafter, the allurements and the glitz and glamours and the chammak of this dunya and the fear of the disadvantages here and all of that, that kind of gets in this way. So he's constantly in a state of conflict inside. Should I worship God? Should I worship this dunya? Right? So that is what makes him a loser in this dunya as well as in the akhirah. You know, when we single-mindedly make this choice of bowing down before God, that is the reason that Tawheed is so empowering. Tawheed actually sets you free. The true power that is there in the submission to the true one God is amazing because you know now I need to do this. I'm going to march forward with this. I need to bow down to God. I don't bow down to anything else. If I get dunya, alhamdulillah, that's a fringe benefit. If I don't, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me akhirah. Well, it's a very single-minded approach, isn't it? And that's a very positive way of looking at things. And that is a very productive way of looking at things. You can't just be dilly-dallying about stuff all the time. That gives you a headache. It's going to make you into a, you're going to be on a roller coaster all the time and you're going to get up and be sick, get off and be sick. So we do not want to be in a state of, yo-yoing. In Urdu, there's a couplet which is called Na khuda hi mila, na visale sanam, na idhar ke rahe, na udhar ke rahe. You didn't even find God, and you didn't even get your idol. You're nowhere. You're at a loss from both places. Right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from among those. These ayat are there so that you and I understand that make your choice and stick to it. Yeah, make your choice and persevere. And you can only persevere if you're holding on tightly to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In ayah number 12, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he invokes instead of Allah that which neither harms him nor benefits him. That is what is the extreme error, yani outlandish error. ذَلِكَ هُوَ ضَلَالُ الْبَعِيدِ. Yani he was gone far astray in invoking somebody who absolutely has can neither harm him nor benefit him at all. Right? And in ayah number 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the same person, he invokes one whose harm is closer than his benefit. How wretched the protector and how wretched the associate or companion. Yani people who leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do? They go to all kinds of extremes to find out, say, for example, about the future, horoscopes, palm reading, all that nonsense. No matter how quote unquote intelligent they are, they take these false gods as their way of life or as their family, right? وَلِبِئْسَ الْعَشِيرُ Ashar is to live with your family. So such wretched companions they take for themselves, right? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in ayah number 14, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَدْخُلُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will admit those who believe and do righteous deeds to gardens beneath which rivers flow. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does what he intends. So the efforts of those, the efforts of those people who are working towards Jannah will not go uncounted. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will recompense them in ways that they are going to be amazed out of their wits when they see that. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from among those. We're going to stop here. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the inheritors of Jannatul Firdaus. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from the anxiety and the depression and the tension of being agnostic about him and of not being able to choose which way to go. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the right path. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا جعلنا منهم الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. يا غفور الرحيم يا أرحم الراحمين يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. As usual, you guys are most welcome to send in your questions, and inshallah we'll try to reply to them to the best of our ability. Take good care. Assalamu alaikum.